Now Vice President Kamala Harris is stepping into a new role, taking the lead on the immigration crisis for the White House.
More than 90 days after the border crisis was added to her portfolio, Vice President Kamala Harris arrived in El Paso.
I said back in March I was going to come to the border, so this is not a new plan.
I'll just give you straight up numbers here. In 2019, we had just over 900,000 arrests in the Border Patrol. 2020, it was just over 405,000. In 2021, that shot up to 1.6 million. 2021, it went up to 2.2 million. And in 2023, it was 2.4 million arrests.
But Republicans criticized the VP for not going to the Rio Grande Valley, where most border apprehensions take place, and for waiting so long.
She avoided traveling to the border for more than 90 days. In that short amount of time of more than 3 months, there's been more than 500,000 encounters.
Harris said she wanted the stop to highlight the human side of the crisis, touring a processing center and meeting with migrant kids.
Listen, I think there's no question that we've got to critically re-examine ICE and its role and the way that it is being administered and the work it is doing, and we need to probably think about starting from scratch.
The issue of immigration is not a monolith. To the point of your question, there are a lot of very specific subsets under that heading that have to be addressed and understood, including those young people like yourself who did not receive DACA protection. So it is irresponsible to not come up with a plan, and there have been bipartisan agreements. But this administration is not going to sign any of them because we have a president of the United States who has created a fiction about a crisis at the border, and he has held up the United States government and its workers around his vanity project called a wall.
This right here that you're looking at, this was the scene yesterday in Lukeville.
Look at all those people just walking across. It still blows my mind every time I see it.
We're here in Texas. I want to ask you about the border. Would you call the border secure?
I think that there is no question that we have to do what the president and I asked Congress to do. Is the first request we made: pass a bill to create a pathway to citizenship.
The idea that he is trying to say that we have people that are trying to invade our country to commit mass crime is a crisis of his own making.
Fox is reporting that among yesterday's crowd in Lukeville were 2 men from Afghanistan. Both were considered special interest and will undergo more federal vetting. Border crossing numbers this month could reach 300,000, and that would be an all-time record.
The trafficking that is happening of drugs and guns coming into our country, it's happening at ports of entry.
The people who are running and willing to spend a week in the desert, are they smugglers smuggling things in, or are they people? Obviously, they're people who feel that if they turn themselves into Border Patrol, they're not going to get released into the United States.
I'm very familiar with Kamala Harris as the Senator and Attorney General in California.
No. No, it is the perspective of a woman who grew up a black child in America, who was also a prosecutor, who also has a mother who arrived here at the age of 19 from India, who also, likes hip hop. Like, what do you want to know?
The words that she has often spoken when it comes to defunding the police and ICE kin to the KKK is demoralizing to law enforcement and those trying to protect our country and protect victims. Thousands of people coming through a day where I visited and I saw people from Yemen, China, coming through.
A long line of Chinese migrants make their way to the U.S. through its border with Mexico. They've arrived after a treacherous journey through a route in Panama that has become increasingly popular.
A friend of mine, Jody Jones, his brother was shot and killed at an AM/PM mini-mart where an illegal immigrant who had been deported 3 times over found his way back into the United States, attempted a robbery, and shot and killed a man. We're starting to see is an influx of Mandarin, or those from China. We're unraveling a human trafficking case of over 40 women who are involved in sexual prostitution up and down the state of California, who have found their way across the border and are here illegally, and that case is ongoing.
On day one, the Biden-Harris administration made 3 changes that led to the unprecedented situation we've seen in our country. Day one, they decided no more building the wall.
But the wall is a very important thing to us. I might put it a different way. Border security is extremely important.
Does anybody have any doubt that we're not doing a wall?
No more remain in Mexico while we evaluate your asylum claim.
Have you said to anybody, hey, there's this giant hole, they're coming through, how about patching that up?
They know that thing is there. And we all been telling them, hey, when this thing gonna quit over here? You gotta call Washington, D.C., that's what they say.
And once you get here, you will not be detained, you will be released into the country.
U.S. Customs and Border Protection told us their agents don't have authority to stop people from coming through gaps like this one and can only arrest them after they've entered illegally.
Do you have any plans to visit the border?
I'm here in Guatemala today. At some point, we are going to the border. We've been to the border. So this whole thing about the border, we've been to the border. We've been to the border.
You haven't been to the border.
And I haven't been to Europe. And I don't understand the point that you're making.
Nancy, would you like to say something?
Does anybody have any doubt that we're not doing a wall?
Okay, and we do. But the problem is the Senate, because we need 10 Democrats to vote, and they won't vote.
The point is that there are equities to be weighed, and we're here to have a conversation in a prayerful way, so I don't think we should have a debate in front of the press on this.
It's called funding the government, Mr. President.